All right, hello, 7th grade. I am Mr. Rogers,
And I'm Mrs. Froman.
and you are watching the video lecture for section 2-3 in your book, and this is just the first half. So this is just on cell division is what we're focusing on here. So we're breaking 2-3 into two different parts. So right now at the top of your notes, write down 2-3 cell division. I've noticed a lot of times when I've checked notes, there's no label on there, so we want to make sure
Yeah.
it's
so
labeled.
you know what they are.
Yes, exactly. So I will let Ms. Froman get started, and I'll jump in there.
All right, so this part of the section is on the cell cycle, which is a regular sequence of growth and division of the cells.
Could we even add in like death of the cell for the cell cycle?
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Because if they're always growing and dividing, we'd be like way bigger.
Yeah.
They never died, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They definitely die.
So some cells die out.
That's
They're
what
not always
dandruff is. It's your dead
skin.
skin cells. Yeah. All right, so our first stage of the cell cycle is interphase, and that's when the cell grows to the mature size. So it starts out a little smaller than normal, and it grows up, gets a little bigger. It copies its DNA, and then the cell is getting ready to divide. And this is most of the cell's life is spent growing and maturing and getting ready to divide.
Okay. How long does that take?
Well, it really depends on the cell.
Oh, okay. But most of its life is a big way to think about it. So
Yeah.
we have some cells here. There's our nucleus. And during interphase, you can kind of start to see some of the DNA strands in there, we'd
Yeah.
say. And there's the
Those little
nucleolus.
darker
Yep.
things
Little
in
darker
there.
things in there, yep, would be the DNA.
Mhm. Stage 2 is mitosis. And this is when the cell nucleus actually divides into two nuclei. One copy of DNA goes into each of the new nuclei. And then the cell divides, splits in two, so you actually have two cells instead of one.
And so we're going to break this down to a bunch of different stages here, actually. So mitosis is kind of the overall...
It's the term that covers the whole cycle of the division part.
All right.
So,
So in mitosis, one cell divides into two. That's when the actual cell is dividing. All right.
Yep. Okay, see now we have phases of mitosis. So just make sure you don't get those
on
two.
mitosis,
Yeah,
yes.
mitosis has its own phases. The first one is called prophase, and that's when the chromatin condenses to form chromosomes. The spindle fibers, which are, if you think of kind of like little tiny spider webs,
Okay.
kind of form a bridge between the ends of the cell. And then the nuclear membrane breaks down.
All right, so already lots of things happening. So now we're in that first phase, that prophase. And I'm going to have a little sketch up here for that idea of chromatin. Chromatin is DNA. It's those strands of DNA, and they condense. So now we think about I always think of it like as the X from the chromosomes, or like knitting a sweater.
Yeah.
They condense down. So now the strands of thread have condensed down and formed that X chromosome sweater. So all those strands have condensed in those tiny, tiny bits. This is actually really tightly wound inside there. And the nuclear membrane breaks down. So that means there's no more nucleus, right?
Right, the material that was inside the nucleus is still there, but the membrane
Okay.
has disappeared.
And so you can see here now in the prophase, we can see these strands of DNA starting to form these chromosomes.
Then we have metaphase, which is, as you have on there, the middle phase of mitosis. And this is when the chromosomes line up across the center of the cell, in the middle of the cell. And those little spindle fibers that formed in the last phase actually attach to the centromere of each chromosome. And the centromere is just the middle of the chromosome where the two chromosomes meet.
Take a quick look at that.
Yeah, I thought we had a picture. There we go, yeah.
One of my drawings, so don't. It's or Mr. Rogers' original. So yeah, that centromere is the middle part of the X, right there in the middle of the X where everything intersects. Okay.
So that's where the spindle fiber is going to connect to it.
Okay. We were right here on metaphase. All right. Now that's what I always tell everybody is metaphase. You look for the chromosomes that are lined up in the middle. So metaphase, you can see those chromosomes right there lined up in the middle.
And you can see the little spindle fibers attached to them too.
They're going this way, yeah.
Then we have anaphase, and this is where the centromeres, that middle part of the chromosome, is actually going to split in half. And now that it's split, each half of the chromosome has a new name called a chromatid. And so one chromatid follows the spindle fiber to one end of the cell, and the other chromatid goes to the other side of the cell. And then also during this phase, the cell is going to start to stretch as those are being pulled apart. It has to start stretching apart.
Okay, so that chromatid, these are going different ways. Okay,
Yep.
it's being pulled. The X is being pulled in half there, basically.
Right.
So with anaphase, you can kind of see now a picture down here. And there's our cell, and there's half of those chromosomes, that chromatid, being pulled toward each half of the cell. And the DNA on this half is the same as the DNA on this half.
Right. And you can even see in that one how that cell is already kind of stretching out a little bit.
Elongated, yeah.
Then we have telophase, or telophase, two ways to pronounce it.
Yeah, that's motto.
Yes. The chromosomes start to stretch out and are less rod-like, so instead of being all tightly wound, they start to relax and go back into being the chromatin again. And you're also going to get your new nuclear membrane forming around those chromosomes, and the cell's going to keep stretching out.
When I think about the chromosomes, I think about less rod-like, so now it goes back to being from that knit sweater. Now the strands are just kind of all over the place again, yeah. So we can see here in telophase, we can see there's those, chromosomes are starting to relax, and we're starting to get where we can kind of see almost two separate cells there too. And we kind of have an acronym to help you guys remember the different phases of mitosis and just the whole cell cycle also. I like to use IPMAT, I-P-M-A-T. So I is really still interphase, its own part of the cell cycle. And then those parts of mitosis, we have PMAT, so prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and the final phase is telophase.
Then we have a whole separate stage of the cell cycle, and that's called cytokinesis. And this is where the cell membrane is actually going to pinch in on itself, and the cell's going to split into two new cells. So each of those cells is going to have the same exact chromosomes, but only about half the organelles.
Okay. And you can see down here, they divide all the organelles. We can see the two separate nuclei formed. And there's that kind of pinched off the middle, so we have two separate cells. Again, the DNA in this cell is the same as the DNA in this cell.
And you can see the spindle fibers in between there, that
little bit there
kind
still,
of light purple there. And those will get cut off by the cell membrane also. They're just like cutting the cord.
There you go. So, 7th grade, we're going to stop here at the first half of our 2-3 notes. There'll be a second half on DNA replication, but today is about how that cell from one cell to two cells was the point of today's notes. What I am going to do is ask you to look at this, put this full screen real quick here. Look at this drawing I made. Whoop. And pause it and put this in your notes before you stop taking notes today. So kind of understand and visualize, the chromatin, they're all really similar. Chromatin, chromatid, chromosome, we're all very similar. So what that means in these terms. So after you put this in, we'll be done for the day. So we thank you guys for watching.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.